All right, let's talk 7 losers. I'm going to make 2 of these videos, one of the winners, one of the losers, and I'm going to do a second round 2 mock draft now that we have the information that happened in the first round. But first, let's do the losers because it's always more fun to start off with the losers. This one gets more clicks. Listen, you can all sit here and say you prefer the positivity, but you're clicking on this video, so you want to see who the losers are as well, or maybe you want to hate watch me talk about the bad job other teams did. Listen, I'll start this off by saying I did not think this was a mistake-filled draft that we have seen in years past. I thought that just about every team did a really smart job. So I had to really stretch for a couple of these losers, and a couple of losers on this list, I actually still kind of like what they did. Like, it's just like, I think maybe you could have done more with some of the draft capital is why you end up on the list. Not a ton of mistakes, but let's talk about a few that, in my opinion, were mistakes. And listen, I consistently, 1 or 2 of the teams that I put on these lists every year end up, we look back at it and say they had a great draft. It is what it is. Evaluations are hard, but let's get into the list. Starting off, number 1 on my list, and these are in no particular order, is the Atlanta Falcons, who, listen, they drafted Michael Penix at number 8 after paying Kirk Cousins a ton of money. And, it feels like it's just a Jordan Love situation, right? But they, for Kirk Cousins, they're going to have to pay him a lot of money coming up these next few years. They're essentially not going to get Penix on a rookie deal. Like, that's out of the question, which maybe you feel like could be worth it if you feel like he is going to be a Jordan Love situation. Listen, Penix is not unworth a number 8 overall pick. I really like him as a player. I think he's a top, 10 pick easily. I think he was massively underrated coming out of college. I love that a team went out and drafted him at number 8. But for Atlanta, I wonder what they're doing, because it's not like Penix was like a surprise to still be there at 8. They knew he was going to be there at 8. If you wanted him that badly, why did you go out and pay Kirk Cousins? Even if you want to let Penix sit for a year, why are you, why not maybe just get Jacoby Brissett, let him start for a year and then go after Penix? Maybe this, honestly, one theory I thought of is maybe they're just like, hey, Cousins is coming off an Achilles injury. Let's just get a second guy in the building. We used to never put resources into the quarterback position. Now we're going the other way, putting a ton in. I don't know. Again, I made a quick video talking about my confusion there and why they made that pick. But it's a weird pick for me, so I am putting them in the losers category, despite the fact that they got a player I really like. Next is going to be the Titans. J.C. Latham at 7. This was a reach for me. Now, I get why they drafted him, and I like him as a player. Again, a lot of these players are going to be guys I liked. I just thought it was a bit of a reach for me at 7. It feels like they're reaching for need instead of getting the best player available, which some people say is a fine strategy and what you should do. There's lots of disagreements constantly about that on this YouTube channel, but for me personally, I think they had other needs. I would have rather gone with like Odunze at 9 personally than going up and getting Latham at 7. If you had to stay there, obviously I think Joe Alt would have been the perfect situation, but he already went. So what are you gonna do at that point? But I thought that there were other options on the table. It was a bit of a reach for me. The Packers are gonna make the list as well. So they get a guy who is, Jordan Morgan was projected to go kind of early day 2. He gets drafted here. The Packers have consistently done this and consistently had it work. So, like, maybe it's unfair. At a certain point, you kind of got to say, it's the Packers. They'll figure it out. But still, it's a loser to me. I wasn't crazy about this pick. I thought it was a bit of a reach. So that's why I put them on the list. The Dallas Cowboys also make the list for kind of similar reasons. I wasn't as crazy about Tyler Guyton. I think he is a bit of a project. Now, again, that was my opinion on it, and a lot of people disagreed. A lot of people think he isn't a project, and he's more of a finished project, I guess I should say. And if you're someone who believes that, okay, then you probably like the pick. But I was a little bit lower on that selection, so they make the list as well. Again, these are not the, what are slapping forehead, what are you doing types of draft picks. These are, you drafted a guy who was lower on my board than he is on your board, I suppose, which is, of course, fine. 49ers make the list. I hate when this happens, when there's a big fan base that's probably all going to crush me and say, what are you doing? I do put Ricky Purcell on this list, who is someone that there's a lot to like about him. I think he'll be a pretty good player. I just feel like, again, he was someone who's projected to go mid-round 2, so getting him in round 1 is a bit of a reach, which, projections are projections, right? Nobody knows anything, especially at the wide receiver position, which can be pretty fluky. So I totally understand all of that. But I still think it's reasonable to say, like, well, he wasn't supposed to go there. You could have traded back. You did, maybe you could have gotten a better player. I think he'll be good in that scheme. I get it. But again, I have to pick the biggest losers. There isn't a ton, so I think that every other team basically maximized their value a little bit more. This one's going to get some criticism, but just hear me out before we get there. I did put the Arizona Cardinals on this list, but again, it has nothing to do with pick number 4. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. as a player, but I was very convinced they were going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. And the way I view winners and losers is not, who got the best players, because like the Bears drafted Caleb Williams, they were going to get a good player like that. They had the first overall pick in a draft with a franchise quarterback. So while they might still make my winners list, it wouldn't be for that pick, right? Because they should have gotten a good player. So I'm not really giving them extra credit for not screwing up the Marvin Harrison Jr. pick. Maybe I'll give them a little credit for doing that. It was the other pick, which I'm not a huge Darius Robinson fan personally. Again, there are people who love him. There are people who think he is great, and I am not, I'm not a complete authority. I'm not saying definitely he is a mess, but I wasn't as crazy about him. I just wasn't. So, again, if that's a loss, if you're making top 7 losers, like, it was a good draft for a lot of teams, because it is not a big loss. But yeah, their second first-round pick, I wasn't crazy about. Okay. I think Cardinals fans are okay with that. The Commanders also make my list, which, again, they were actually the 7th team I thought of to finally put on this list. I had 6, and I was like, I got to get a 7th to make the list work. I always do 7. I went with Washington, who, again, people will disagree with this take. I'm not as crazy on Daniels as other people are. I like Drake May more. So it's kind of what made me decide to put them on this list is, hey, it's my list. It's my thinking, and I am not as high on him as other people are. That doesn't necessarily mean that I am right. I have been wrong a million times, and I'll be wrong a million more times, but you're clicking on this video to hear my opinions. That is my opinion. Is I like Drake May more as a prospect. I just did. I think it would have been a better move to go out and get Drake May than Daniels. Could Daniels be awesome? Absolutely, but I don't know. So yeah, those are my 7 losers. We got through it. What did you think? Did your team make the list or not? Sorry if your team did. But again, I'm just a guy who gives opinions. I'm not an authority on it. But let me know if you disagree with them or agree with them in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.